Recently I was in Strabane in Tyrone in Ireland for the 8th International Flann O'Brien conference, where I presented a paper to a lovely audience and spontaneously made some audio recordings.
Sorry, I'm listening here.
Listen in, and you will hear some of the atmosphere of this unique academic conference and the voices of some of those present.
Voices that I think
genetically.
We're in Strabane, the Ally Arts and Conference.
Brendan Behan singing Irish ballads.
We've clips from the Farmer's Home pub,
More sense of like amusing ourselves to death kind of.
snippets from the walking tour,
of locations around Strabane which were important to Brian, and Olin.
interviews with speakers outside the Ally Arts Theatre and Conference Centre,
Miles and the Gopley.
Flann O'Brien and the
There's
conception.
Flann O'Brien.
Workshop for Flann O'Brien.
audio from the art exhibition and book launch event.
You need to know me back in Anton O'Farrell. Dad away. The all metal.
And our final night dinner at the Oyster Restaurant, including an interview off Gaeilge with Strabane and Derry City Councillor Anton O'Farrell.
Uidir agus scríbnóir ionta tábhachta the winter na Heron.
And a final compilation of delegates' personal highlights.
Alana's contribution really
Emily's
helped.
post-colonial
Brian Lampkin's
Brian's about the Gormleys.
Shane brought the tears of
conversation with Anne O'Neill.
Today we were walking around the town.
We open on the eve of the conference, a Tuesday in Strabane in late June, where it's after 10 o'clock and still bright out.
Well, we're here at the Farmer's Home pub, which is a lovely spot that's got about 5 wee snugs in it, and it's filled with young folk from Strabane who probably just finished their A-levels or their O-levels or whatever it is they're doing, and a load of weird Flann O'Brien heads.
It's the modern sense of like amusing ourselves to death kind of thing.
My name is Rhonda, this is Mark and Violet, and we're going to be your tour guide this morning. Today we're going to give you a bite-sized tour of locations around Strabane which were important to Brian, and Olin. If you would like to follow me now, please.
This here is an image of Bowling Green when Brian lived. If you'd like to pass it around and compare and contrast from now to then.
Oh wow.
Where's the church? Yeah, church is just up there. In his Gaelic League activities, Michael met his future wife, Agnes Gormley, formerly of Omagh, but a member of the business family at that time, who resided at Market Street and Main Street in Strabane. They married in Murlock, Lifford, in County Donegal in 1906, which is less than a mile from where we are right now. This blue flag has been erected as a tribute to Brian, Flann and Myles, to mark the respect and esteem of which he is held here and in the country. Shortly after Brian's birth, his family, Michael V. O'Nolan, now a very successful and upwardly mobile officer, was promoted and transferred to Glasgow.
Was the cinema here today? I think that was the cinema down there, that tall building.
Oh, that's right.
And that was a hotel back in the day, previously.
Okay, so that blue and grey is commercial
think that's
hotel,
that.
and that's the edge of that, the grey one.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're moving up this way then.
And we could hear the distant clank of mowing machines and the faint hum of the turbines of the London Mills and Ceol Mills. Ceol Mills is just 3 miles up the river.
Do you see with that yellow house? That's just the end of it there.
Behind that.
And at the side, behind the trees. We have a photograph.
This final section of the walking tour was recorded on Main Street in Strabane, opposite Gormley's shoe shop. Our tour guide Violet tells us that this was Strabane's busiest street, and it's still sounding pretty lively.
Thank you. Upstairs and seated by the window, they loved to watch the world of Strabane's busiest street go by. They sat in the luxury of their sitting room, listening to their favourite singer, Count Joan McCormick, on the gramophone. McCormick continued to be Brian's favourite singer throughout his life, and visits to Strabane and Gormley's here on the main street continued to be a happy and favourite event throughout the lives of Jared, Peter and Brian. In 1918, Uncle Eugene was arrested without trial or evidence and was imprisoned on a prison ship Argenta anchored at the lough of Belfast.
Thank you to all three of our guys. That was great. Thank you so much.
Back at the Alley Arts Theatre and Conference Centre, I managed to catch up with a few of the other delegates.
Well, my name is Maebh Murphy. I'm the co-director of the Centre of Irish and Scottish Studies at the University of Otago, and I'm also the president of the Flann O'Brien Society. So in a way, because Flann O'Brien was so based in Dublin and kind of constructed such a Dublin identity around himself, particularly in his Myles na gCopaleen persona, it made a lot of sense to think of him in terms of Dublin, and I suppose it also continued a trajectory of thinking of Irish writers either as kind of as exiled as have gone away, or in this very Dublin kind of purview, in the same way that contemporary Irish writers, there seems to be this proliferation of narratives about Trinity, as if there was no other university in Ireland. So there's this very interesting, like, Dublin-centric kind of perspective that we get on writers. So coming to Strabane, and it's my first time in Strabane, has been a really good way of kind of diversifying, I suppose, our thinking of O'Brien, but also maybe just furthering this kind of movement away from Dublin. I mean, of course a Cork woman would say that, but
I always have the knife out.
I'm Dominic Harkin. I'm a PhD student at Queen's University Belfast. I look at Flann O'Brien and the beginnings of analytic philosophy in the late 20s and 1930s. I'm interested in the role of the scientist in kind of the broader culture and kind of particularly sort of emergent novelistic forms in the early 20th century. So that's like detective fiction and science fiction, things like that.
My name's Catherine Flynn. So I talked about a later piece, something, a teleplay that he wrote specifically for RTE, which was in its infancy in the 1960s. And it's called O'Day's Your Man. And I talked about the two characters, Mr. O'D or Mr. O, and Ignatius, his underling, as a kind of like queer couple, as a sort of parents of this new Irish nation.
Joe Brooker. I'm over here from London, from southeast London actually. You know, there is this Cambridge companion to Flann O'Brien on the way in due course, and I'm going to be writing a chapter for it about Flann O'Brien and his Irish contemporaries and other Irish figures of the modern times, modern literary history and his relations with them.
I'm Harren Streilick. I'm an assistant professor in School of Engineering, Trinity College Dublin. The concept of bringing in new people who are only starting in Flann studies and who have been working in adjacent areas and who have something to say that's going to blow your mind, that's a radical concept, and that needs to be nurtured, and the conference has been giving us that for a while now, and I really appreciate that.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Ridge. I work at the University of Galway. I teach in 20th century literature. I'm a newcomer to Flann O'Brien studies, but I feel like I've been welcomed very warmly into this lovely community, and I'm looking forward to pursuing that. It is now Thursday, the second day of the conference, and I am strolling to the Alley Theatre, where I hear there is some coffee and snacks.
Robin Hull, Aldous Huxley Centre, Zurich. It's my first visit. Genetically, I'm half English. Practically, I'm Swiss. So I'm English, but not English. And I come to Strabane, which strikes me as a very interesting place because it looks English, but it isn't English.
Hi, I'm Seamus McCanney from Belcoo in Fermanagh. I'm a writer, a historian. I've long been interested in Flann O'Brien. I think maybe from the radio I would have heard people doing recitations or reading excerpts from the work. That I've always found that. And then as a writer, I found it very inspiring, the playfulness, the use of the two languages. Gurwarsha idir an dá hanga agus sinna rud dhéanam sa mé héin scríbim in Gaelic den cuid mó, but I don't have a sort of a reverential attitude to the language. I'm quite happy to kick it about and do things with it. And Flann O'Brien was very much the same. He could see how the purists were constricting the language instead of helping it to flourish. Oh yes, the book that I'm working on at the moment is a local history book. Barney McGlone was the pen name of a journalist in Fermanagh in the middle of the 19th century. Yeah. And I've come across a series of articles written in the 1850s about the immediate post-famine situation in northwest Donegal, where the people were starving, where the landlords seized the commonage on the top of the mountains where the people used to graze their animals, and brought in all these sheep and Scottish shepherds, and then any time anything happened to those sheep, the people were billed, you know. And he tells all these stories, so it's a primary source. So I think by republishing this, it will illuminate a whole period and start a new debate about what was going on at the time. Well, yes, the talk I did this week was looking at how the idea of a columnist in a paper develops a persona, and how that takes on a life of its own, and how sometimes there's a creative tension there. For some people it's really useful to have this persona, it gives them a freedom, but then also it constricts them because people are expecting a particular style and subject matter from them. Yeah. And so that happened in the case of Barney McGlone, otherwise known as, who was actually Robert Arthur Wilson. It's the same in the case of Brian O'Nulan, where Myles na Gcopalainn became a larger persona than than Brian himself.
Mícheál Cnílan seo as Connemara, scríbneoir agus chama blianta fad le faidiúireacht, bhuna me clóideachanata le 1985 agus chama tíoch sé bliana gobarann sin, a chanis táime ar scarún ggólacht agus táime scríb chuit búgan nám, gearscéalta, filíocht, úrscéalta, bí me geistú chama agus fí láthir táime geistú drámaí le Beckett go Gaeilge agus spéisiad sa taibhheart go lua in Ireland agus spéisiad im nach lia ag in Dublin Theatre Festival.
Marianne O'Kane Bowl, and I am a curator and a writer on art and architecture, and what I'd really like to do is kind of invite other people to reflect on how they've built their interest in the author.
Hi, yeah, my name is James Bacon. I'm a train driver. I'm currently living in London. I work out at Paddington Station and I drive the express train to Heathrow, and I've been a Flann O'Brien fan now for about 35 years, and that was beautiful, taking in both the architecture of the railway, where the boys might have gone out cycling when they were cycling in Donegal. That railway line doesn't come to Strabane, but Strabane was a huge railway area. The lay of the land, the ground, the bridge over what was a railway is all still there.
My name's Zhixian. I'm from Taiwan. I've learned a lot that the Irish language matters in Flann O'Brien's work.
My name is Pádraig O'Mallad, and I was talking about carpentry.
It's been a very enriching day so far, and now it's time for the launch of exhibitions and books and a very special donation by the O'Nolan family to the people of Strabane.
You need to know, I did get the permission to reproduce this very, very fine painting by Maebh Murphy, which is called A Pint of Plain Is Your Only Man.
It's a pleasure to be here. You know, the family made this book possible. You know, and I'm grateful to them. So thank you.
This is me back in Anton O'Farrell. I am also pleased to see the Strabane History Society's book launch, where Michael Kennedy will say a few words.
Maybe we could give one to everybody in the audience. She said no.
I would like to congratulate Joanne O'Kane, Eamon O'Kane, Matthew O'Kane and David O'Kane, and of course Eddie O'Kane, on their stunning contributions. There is an exhibit of the Mícheál O'Nualan's art collection out there in the other room, and the O'Nualans have made an incredibly generous gift to the people of Strabane and to the Alley Theatre in the last couple of days, but I will let Oisín speak to that.
It's been amazing to watch and see it grow and to see all the madness. This is the 8th international event. O'Brien's done stellar work. I think he deserves a round of applause. to see my dad's work. It's a little bit emotional because haven't seen his work up. And we used to grow up, you know, going to exhibitions and like a lot going to exhibitions. And when I was young, we didn't think about it. There was always madness brought up to exhibitions, and we were turning up and stuff. Wasn't really going to school, you know, the house, wasn't really housekeeping, waking up at midday. But it's just wonderful to see it here. There's a sense of home. Although my dad was a Dublin man, he was born in Dublin and grew up in Dublin. He had lifelong commitment, and he would tell people he's a Tyrone man. So it's kind of emotional coming back here. I've been here for years, since before my dad died, and I'd just like to say I hope you enjoy it. As you can see, I was never going to be normal if you look at some of those paintings. It wasn't going to be a normal thing, but that's a path. It's a bit, I have Tyrone blood in me for sure, there's no doubt about that. I can charge sheets to prove it. So I'd just like to say thanks very much to everyone, and once again, Brian, we look at hard work. Yes, and the painting, sorry, is donated from our family. The portrait of my brother, sorry, my uncle, is being donated from my family to Strabane. Derry can only loan it, by the way. Okay, yeah, we'll get that in. And that's how close we are to that bit of history. My dad shared a room with Brian when he was actually writing A Swim Two Birds. And he used to be keeping my dad awake with the all-metal typewriter. My dad used to be going mad. And the gestation of that picture was originally Brian wouldn't let him do a proper portrait, especially as he got older and he wasn't as comfortable with the way he looked. And my dad had done sketches from when he was a child, because my dad was sort of like an artistic prodigy in that way, that he got to the College of Art when he was a scholarship when he was 9 years old, so he was well ahead. So that picture was kind of bastardised later, in a good way. Without further ado, we're glad on the path of New Lands to donate it for Strabane forever. All right.
On Friday morning, I was happy that I got an early night the night before, as it was the final day of the conference.
Brenach on the core, I think by coming here to Strabane, we may have changed the presenters and delegates' attitude towards the man, towards the town, towards the work, have grounded it in a real place. But we also had an impact on the wider community.
There's something just very ineffable about his stories, like The Third Policeman and At Swim Two Birds. So that's kind of been extended to him as an author for me in a weird way. And so actually being here and seeing the house he grew up in, seeing his family and the crowds, and like seeing the places that he would have seen and kind of making connections to things he's written about makes him feel a lot realer. Michaelin Rochford. I am a PhD researcher at the University of York in literature, and I'm doing a project on Flann O'Brien and Irish literary traditions, kind of in conversation with narrative theory, among other authors as well.
I mean, I think I first read At Swim Two Birds when I was 17 or 18, and I think at that time it was it was kind of a cult novel, and what attracts young people to something is it's full of obscurity that's obscure to their parents. Ooh. And that we understand this, but of course you only half understand it. Brian Lampkin, retired now, but used to work in the Mellon Centre for Migration Studies just down the road at the Ulster American Folk Park, between Strabane and Omagh. I think what he was part of what he was trying to do was to get people interested in early Irish literature. He was presenting this Finn material and the Sweeney material in a way, and he was hoping that there would be enough of it there to tempt people to dig more into that and find out for themselves and get interested in it. He was making a Middle Irish romance tale accessible to a 20th century audience.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love the thing about, I didn't realise that is the black. Do you see the black letters or do you read the white in between? It's a bit like that, isn't it, really? So my name is Liam Campbell, and I'm the director of the Mellon Centre for Migration Studies. which is just up the road from here in the Ulster American Folk Park. The idea was that places where borderlands are kind of, liminal places, but they're also places of kind of sanctuary.
I'm Elliot. I've been doing a postdoc at Trinity, working on my book on Flann O'Brien, which will be out next year. Also editing a book of essays on Irish writers in the civil service, and that'll be coming out at the end of this year.
Being named after Myles and reading and thinking about Flann O'Brien, and not just in a literary way, but in a really personal identity-forming way, has always been really intense, but also really private for me. Not because I want it to be private, but because in California and Germany, the other places I live, I'm not surrounded by people who know what I'm talking about.
Friends you haven't met yet,
My name is Michael Pearce, and I work at Queen's University Belfast, where I mainly research the cultural production literature of Irish working class life. All those characters who kind of comically, in the poor mouth, often expire just as they're delivering these kinds of, performances for Dublin Gael glory. But of course, deep beneath that laughter is a deep tragedy of the new state's veneration of the ideal of the Gael, but its short shrift for the people, the poor people of the West. And it struck me that there was a real consonance there with Behan's sense of the same thing for the excluded and the marginalised of the East. And I don't think Behan's recognised enough for not alone his service to the working class and his issues around class and inequality, but actually so much of his writing is about women, about sex workers, about LGBTQ people. They appear in so many of his works as people who can be kind of easily forgotten about, let die. And I thought, in his play, the Richard's Cork Leg, which I discussed there, that's so evident in that story of a woman who died or was killed 100 years ago, a month to the month. Honor Bright, or Lizzie O'Neill, who was a sex worker in Dublin, he introduces that story in the play as a means of reminding us of how little the state is really paying service to that aspiration of the revolutionary period of cherishing all the children in the nation equally.
My name is Alana Gillespie. I am a researcher on Flann O'Brien. Today I was chatting about uncanny perspectives in the work of Brian O'Nolan, of what's at stake in when we encounter the uncanny or a moment of haunting. Just has such a way of making us notice things that are there but not there, and I love the way that he makes us look at the basic reality around us to see that it's not really basic at all, and quite complicated, but also at the same time I think there's still an element of I find there's something quite comforting and it's despite the disturbing aspects of some of our reality, and the way that he's trying to negotiate and make sense of
well, apparently according to the ordinance,
the way that he's trying to make sense of a really quickly changing world in his own time, with the clash of modernity and tradition, and the way that he engages with that in an extremely critical fashion, which is humorous and loving and unforgiving. I think that makes him an absolutely fantastic writer.
So my name is Louise Weiss. I'm the venue manager of the Alley Arts and Conference Centre here in Strabane, and we have just been delighted to host the 8th International Flann O'Brien Conference in association with Strabane History Society and also Notre Dame University. It's been such a pleasure to have hosted 40 delegates from 12 different countries over 3 days. And it has been very special for our town here in Strabane, and we hope all the delegates enjoyed being here as much as we enjoyed hosting them.
Definitely. And can we get a rendition of Black is the Colour?
No, because it was Irish now.
Okay, great.
conference came to a close on Friday night with a banquet at Oysters restaurant.
That's it. Enjoy the meal.
Congratulations.
Do you want a prize for best book?
They did.
Fogards is that. Why who again? Agus can you go? My lord.
That was Derry City and Strabane councillor Anton O'Farrell, alongside Louise Boyce from the Alley, congratulating Brian O'Connor, who won Best Flann O'Brien monograph earlier in the week. Brian took the opportunity to interview O'Farrell, who expressed his appreciation for Flann O'Brien's writing, discussed the author's homeschooling os Gaeilge, and spoke on the growth of the Irish language in the town in his lifetime.
One much an saltas agus tarvas and Codal show. Ruggy and show agus Bacour doing blood more yanni de agus Uder agus Scribnor into Tawata the winter na heron agus Tamage into Brogelas. Mullus aga show Vidini Elon but Asian and then you smoke Tawagin agus Togu Legillige agus Tazong Guru Berla Kamoi. But Dolam Chiad Berla J. Ernye Kuru Ejas or who Sawalla Yahishid er Skull and Shaw
Tá an alley theatre arouse. Ashton a Kate Scott. Conna school Ash call machine Egamalia.
And what is a show? Tamaj ain't the Sasta August ain't the project will she again August being galore ruddy on August Kahimaj usage August Kahimaj an alley a calorie maragerter.
Keiko Lauder is a ta an Gaeilge an Strabane fi láthar.
Ta Gaelsco an seo hui machlanta hen hagen Gaelsco August tan gillig golu nyart blento hinder vi mashik fasten is sa canter ni rumoren dini on a ro gillig oku anish chiglan gillig lorch gakla Strabane. Shinmarata kursi anish.
Son locht na cógála son common flanny vrian gur a míle mahagat as an valta clean úntach a curach roing agus an bailne a reintling agus airecht flanny vrian a reint a chalóra agus a reintling.
Agus gudéisiab je lig slán agus tatsúil agam gudagan siab a rash.
Thanks for listening. The final section now is a little compilation of delegates telling us one moment that stayed with them.
There was a welcome from the Mayor of Strabane last night to the conference, and he spoke very precisely, very accurately about the conference, and very, very generously as well about the about what it means to Strabane to have the conference here. So I really liked that. We've had music, we've had traditional music, we had a brass band. And we've had marvelous keynotes. We had this incredible keynote today about geology and topography that was just so thought-provoking. So there's a great deal to enjoy here.
Yeah, and some of the discussions about the geography has been quite interesting to me, about the catchment areas and what things would have been like for young Brian O'Nolan as around the time of partition and things just changing, his sort of attention to borders, I think, and boundaries in different ways. It's been quite exciting to think about in this locality. So
the highlight for me, I think, is the day we were walking around the town. It was seeing the locals stop and kind of like look at the weirdos, and then realising that there was this group of people who had come from the outside to their town to study, talk about their person. And while they were kind of like that, and in the pubs at night, there was a certain amount of kind of like, are you mad? But there was a respect and there was a sense of pride amongst themselves, which only comes when somebody from the outside comes to study what you see every day.
Really inspirational 3 days, and a lot of very exciting papers, and people here from quite a lot of different countries as well, so it's been a very interesting experience, and lots of lovely conversations. And I suppose one of the main things about this conference is it has kind of increased personal pride in the local area.
Perhaps I should have done, but I don't think I'd ever quite realised what a Republican town Strabane was. You know, here we are at the very far west of the UK, near the border. It's a very Republican town still, and you can see on the posters and the banners and things, even in the streets now. And it that just helps you to give a little bit more background to thinking about the politics in the background of the life of Flann O'Brien. I think that's something that isn't often mentioned.
I was very touched by seeing, as he donated a painting, a family painting, to the collection here in the alley. Oisin brought the tears, Oisin Flann's nephew, and just what it meant to them to see this conference here. I thought, wow, that's a particularly poignant moment, and for the family to see that recognition. It's not often something that happens at an academic conference, and it does suggest that maybe we should do more of those things.
Both times that Michael Kennedy has spoken, actually. I just really enjoy hearing about Strabane from the people who live there. And I also come from a really, rural little town like this, so it's nice to see that, a big group of researchers and scholars and people who really love this author come here. And one thing that really stands out to me about this conference, as opposed to others that have been in bigger cities, is just local participation, which I think is really special.
For me, what's most vivid in my memory right now is my conversation with Anne O'Nulon, Micheál O'Nulan's widow, and just hearing about her account of Micheál and the kind of O'Nulon genius, this sort of vitality, idiosyncrasy that's translated into artistic productivity and innovation.
But the one from today that really made a big impression was Brian's about the Gormleys, because I didn't. I knew that there was a great influence from that side of the family that hadn't been explored, but just to hear the extent of it was incredible.
I really enjoyed Brian's chat when he was talking about the Gormleys. He's such an impassioned speaker. You'd have him at the pulpit shouting. It was fantastic.
You definitely want him on your side?
Absolutely, yeah. No, get him fighting for you, like Kerry's spirit.
I feel like the moment of the conference was just now in the previous session. So for me, I feel like Alana's contribution really helped me put some my angles on the eerie stuff and her angles on the uncanny, really meeting somewhere halfway, and it's giving me a whole new perspective, and it gave me some really good material, and it's given me pretty much something to work on for the next while.
Yeah, I was interested in Brian Lampkin's reading of At Swim Two Birds, which I think will change the way that I see the student narrator lying in his bed. The idea of going into the dark and composing in the dark in the bedroom, so he's not just a lazy student. He's in the sort of bardic tradition. I was convinced by that, definitely, by the end. Yeah.
A couple of speakers at the end there, Tess Birchmore and Elliot Mills, talking about magazines and journals and bringing back those kind of texts that are hidden away a bit and we don't look at so much, and it's great to hear that kind of research.
I think maybe the panel that ended with sort of us going round at each giving our kind of first kind of moments with Flann, how we got introduced to him, either that or I suppose the evenings in the farmer's home.
Flann O'Brien has a lot of voices, and I think we heard this week that he's now going to have a voice in Chinese, in Irish, he's been translated into Turkish. We heard a lot of voices coming here, different accents, and it's great to think that Flann will be heard in many different languages across the world. And obviously there are all sorts of challenges because he's not a simple writer by any means. He's multi-layered. Every word he uses, every phrase, there's all sorts of different dynamics going on, but it was very refreshing to see that the people who were translating him into other languages were aware of this and weren't just, we're so much nowadays, we have Google Translate, we have AI and all this sort of things. To really translate literature of this sort, it has to be a personal engagement. It has to be a personal understanding of the different levels of what's going on. The word metafiction was used quite a lot in this conference, and that's exactly what he was writing. It's not like translating a legal text or something like that. There has to be the human engagement.
I liked the kind of the Emily's post-colonial engagement, and I thought bringing it back to Connemara, and I thought the very actually idea of a Kigara complex is a really useful phrase. I don't know if Emily quite knows what she has with that, and I think she put it together kind of playfully, but I think that idea of kind of situating O'Nolan quite specifically in a post-colonial Gaeltacht experience and thinking through the ramifications that he's talking about kind of both in the Bealbocht kind of early 20th century period, but also looking at how that still was playing out in the 1980s in terms of the Kigara coming in and this kind of obligation that children kind of lie a little bit or bend the truth. It was a really interesting kind of widening, I suppose, of the impacts of An Bealbocht in contemporary Ireland. And I liked her connection as well to NECAP.
Everyone wanted to deepen their understanding in a very open way. It's a very vibrant but welcoming community, and you really kind of feel that when you're in it, and a great sense of kind of learning from each other. In the kind of process of trying to understand like this very complex literary figure.
I mean, tá mé an sásta go bhfuil míid an seo, I mean, líonn sé le réasún agus le ceol go mbeadh cógáil bhríonaí nualáin an nualáin ag an Strabane, an áit nar tógach an áit ina raibh cónaí ar a bhainter, an áit ar ilse go mion agus go minic, agus an áit ar tomach sa Gaeilge agus a cultúr na Gaeilge. I mean, céná deile a raitha seachas tíorón.
Brendan Beaton singing Irish ballads. Still after it. I mean, it's Beaton in there.
Away.